Welcome to the Retail Reality Show.
Welcome to another episode of the Retail Reality Show. I have the great honor and pleasure today to have a fabulous guest. But before we get to our guest, Yael, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Nino. How are you?
I'm fine. So sun is out in Munich, but I know you have some renovation going on in your apartment. How is the apartment?
We're working on it, getting there.
Very good. How is retail, Yael, in your part of the world? Retail tech?
Retail tech is, it's always a challenge, especially when times are difficult, when the economy is not so strong, with tariffs, with everything else. Also investments in retail tech are declining, but we do see some signs of recovery. So let's be optimistic.
Yeah, I think you have to be optimistic in these days with perma crisis, and also the German economy is growing a little bit. I read this year. Yeah, that's a sign of hope, and I'm looking forward to seeing you during ISPO, the sports event in Munich in December, right?
Yes, we will definitely be in Munich in December for a Resport event, and let's hope maybe we can have a retail reality show episode recorded there.
I would love to. Yeah, so first and 2nd of December, if you're in Munich, stop by Resports, part of the ISPO summit, and get some live interviewing.
Yes.
Cool, but today it's all about our fabulous guest. We have Carina Perkins from EMARKETER. Welcome, Carina.
Thanks, Nino. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Where do we find you today?
So I am down on the south coast of England in a place called Angmering, which is west of Brighton.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds lovely and sounds like holiday.
Yeah, it's very nice. It is like being on holiday all the time here.
Cool. So I think a lot of people know EMARKETER, but people probably don't know you. Maybe do you want to quick introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Carina Perkins. I am a senior analyst for EMARKETER covering the UK and Western Europe. And I've also led our coverage of AI in retail. My background is in journalism. For a very long time, I was a journalist. And now I just love writing about everything retail.
Perfect. And that's also how we found you, via a former colleague. And we are excited to speak about Gen AI in retail today. But before we dive into the topic, Yael prepared some icebreakers.
Yes. So, Carina, now we're grilling you on the icebreaker. Is AI in retail a real game changer, or is it just a hype? I recently wrote a post called the AI retail bubble. So this is kind of like a small hint to what I think, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think it can be a game changer when it's used to solve real problems. So I think there's a lot of hype around some applications of AI in retail. And often those applications are kind of consumer facing applications. That's what everyone's obsessed with. But actually, I think at the moment, that kind of real game changing impact is coming from the behind the scenes efficiency games. Things like inventory forecasting, improve supply chains. So I think in time, the consumer facing picture will have more of an impact. But I think at the moment, the hype and what's actually making the difference is perhaps not matching up.
On a personal preference, do you prefer shopping online or in store?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So I think I prefer shopping online, but that's partly because I now live in quite a quiet village, so we don't have a huge amount of stores available. I think I'm quite a classic UK shopper in that I quite like ordering online and then picking up in store. We have a big Next near us and they're great for that. So I like the selection that you get online, but I quite enjoy the kind of going in store experience.
And last icebreaker, what is your favorite retail tech gadget or tool?
My favorite actually is AR try-ons, and I think it's something that hasn't perhaps gained as much traction as everyone hoped they would. And I think it's something that will improve now with generative AI, actually, which can improve the technology. I think it's my favorite just because it has the potential to reduce the returns problem, and that is such a critical problem for e-commerce retailers.
Completely agree.
That's a good one. Yeah, probably my hypothesis behind that, if you have seen maybe the announcement of Mark Zuckerberg and the presentation that completely went the wrong side, I would say, of the new Meta glasses. I think the idea is great and if they work, but they didn't during presentation. But I think what will happen is that many people get more used to instant recognition of objects and then buying them, researching them and whatsoever. Have you seen it?
I heard
I haven't
of it.
seen the. Yeah, me too. I haven't seen the new
So I think
demonstration.
Yeah, you should. On YouTube, there are some videos around that, how he tried to work with it and then just abandoned. But as I said, so I think it has potential, and it was just a unlucky bug or whatever.
Yeah, there's maybe a lesson in there for retailers, actually. I think it does highlight an issue when retailers are chasing the hype, which is offering these technologies because they want to have the kind of shiniest new thing. But if it then doesn't work correctly or it gives the consumer an extra friction point, that's actually going to be quite damaging long term.
I agree. Yeah, that's also what I see in my professional life, working with customers and people interested in AI. I think the why behind is very important. And then if you have set the why, then there can be road bumps. There can also be risks, like reputation and so on, but you can hedge them and manage them. But if you do it for the sake of being innovative and cool, I think that's very risky.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Cool. So, Carina, I've read lots of reports from EMARKETER that had your name under it. One of them was generative AI in retail. What's hype versus reality in the shopper journey, and that caught my particular attention because I also invest a lot of time and energy into this topic, and I'm curious what to learn, what impact you see. But before you do that, probably not everybody knows what is Gen AI versus traditional AI. So what's so new? What do you think today's AI, generative AI, ChatGPT and the likes is so much different to the previous versions of AI, predictive machine learning? Yeah.
That's a really good question. And I think it's something we see a lot of kind of confusion and people grappling with because AI has obviously been around a long time. As you said, we've had predictive AI around for a long time. But really, this kind of interest in it more recently has exploded with generative AI, with ChatGPT. And that's the kind of large language model that we're seeing now. And really, it's capable of creating new content. So it can create text, it can create imagery, it can create videos. And really at the heart of generative AI, that's what it is. As opposed to predictive AI, which is more about kind of recognizing patterns in data and giving predictions based on that. So it's so exciting, I think, for retail generative AI because it raises the potential of hyper-personalization, which was impossible really for retailers to scale. And it was like, how are we ever going to get to that level of hyper-personalization? Now, generative AI, because it can produce content at scale, you have an ability to personalize the consumer experience in a way that we haven't previously had. And now we're seeing the kind of next wave of AI, which is agentic AI. And agentic AI has elements of generative AI and predictive AI and machine learning. But what it has that the others don't is a kind of autonomy. So AI agents, as opposed to if you have a generative AI assistant, it can converse in a natural language and complete a kind of really simple predefined task, perhaps, but you have continuous user input. So you always have to have a user input for it to carry on and give you something else. Whereas AI agents can take initiative, they can operate with minimal human oversight, and they could complete a kind of end-to-end task. So from a shopping perspective, that then goes from us perhaps speaking to an AI assistant about what products might be suitable and, you know, how much they are and where we can find them, to us saying, okay, can you go and buy that for me? And it will complete the entire process.
And this is something that really kind of collapses the entire purchase funnel, right? And this is where we actually get into the impact of Gen AI over retail. And is this like the main implication that we're seeing is the implication on the shopper journey, or do you think the main implications will be more in the back end, in the supply chain, and all of those areas?
I mean, I think the immediate implications from a kind of financial benefit for retailers is going to come from the back end stuff. I think the consumer facing stuff actually is more of a threat, and it's a challenge for brands and retailers to overcome. We are seeing quite a sharp spike in Gen AI traffic to retailer websites. So the share of traffic is going up quite a lot. It's still pretty low compared to things like search, but it's going up really quickly. So on one hand, we've got generative chatbots like ChatGPT directing a lot of traffic to retailer websites, which is great. But on the other hand, we're seeing overall clicks going down. So there's been a few studies showing that there's quite a large percentage of searches now happening with things like Google overviews, where there's 0 clicks, people aren't going to the brand and retailer websites. Now, ChatGPT and, the shopping capabilities, it's one thing if a consumer's researching there and they say, okay, great, here's a product and I'm going to click onto the retailer website and I'm going to go and buy it. But if it has agentic checkout and therefore it can complete the whole transaction without leaving ChatGPT, what you suddenly have implication there for the retailer is that the people aren't visiting your website.
Yeah.
So even though perhaps you've made a sale, you lose the potential for upsell. It has implications for retail media. So there's a lot of challenges at the moment for kind of brands and retailers to be grappling with, and it's not all bad news, and it will also be great. And we're seeing brands launch their own AI assistants, and perhaps that's helping with personalization. But it's a challenge as well as an opportunity, I think, for the sector at the moment.
Speaking of internal AI assistants, we do see that the big retailers, Walmart, Amazon already launched their own AI assistants, Zalando as well. How much do you think retailers should invest in those internal AI assistants versus investing in how they connect and interact with the external AI agents?
Yeah, this is a question we get asked a bit actually, and it's a challenging one, isn't it? So I think that really it's quite easy now. There's a lot of third-party technology vendors who are building out AI assistants, and it's kind of quite easy to plug that into your website. So you don't have to go and build your own proprietary technology necessarily. So I would say that is a good place to invest to start with, if you're not a kind of huge retailer that has the budget to build your own. In terms of interacting with the big guys, I think at the minimal, you need to be making sure that your content is kind of searchable and visible by AI. And you've got all your kind of meta tags right in there. Like that should be the big concern at the moment, is make sure that you are showing up in those searches. And we've already seen, SEO, it's been a huge art, and it's going to kind of change again, because it's not just now about showing up in a search engine, it's about showing up in an AI bot. And I don't think we know yet exactly how that works, which is the challenge.
Yeah, putting my tech glasses on, I've seen a few things which probably give you a glimpse. So I think there was a blog writing about markup, and I think in the old days it was the no index, so the robots txt that kind of instructed the Google crawler to index something versus don't index something, and they were talking about having those files that give you API endpoints. So, for example, API endpoint for real-time inventory check, and an instruction how to do that, versus an API for the checkout service. So all the things that an agent can converse with. And then we see new technologies like MCP, Model Context Protocol, driven by Anthropic, to connect various agents together. I think there's a lot of stuff happening at the moment to evaluate and also see which technologies will make it, let's say, to the productive state in the end.
Yeah, and it is also a bit of a conundrum, because we're also seeing retailers like Amazon block AI agents from their sites because they don't want AI agents to be able to come and complete a checkout without people visiting their site. So I think we're going to see retailers and brands taking different strategies, and it might be determined on their size, much like we see brands selling through kind of third-party marketplaces and so on. Like, I think there will be different tactics depending on their brand's own AI capabilities and how important it is going to be for them to be discoverable.
One question, because you just mentioned Amazon, and Yael mentioned Zalando. In your research, have you seen any cool new agents? Have you come across some retailers or other companies who have a cool agent or even have some business results that they have shared?
Yeah, I'm struggling to find business results yet. I think the best one I found was Klarna, which had shown that it created a kind of AI shopping assistant on its platform, and it was showing really positive things, but it's quite old, the data that it had, but it was showing that it was kind of really positive in terms of reducing the number of the efficiency of the service agent, basically. But I think we're still in such early days that people aren't yet kind of reporting on how successful these agents are being on actual conversion and purchases and metrics like that. I think that the most game-changing ones are actually going to be the ones that are operated by the tech companies. So I think it's things like ChatGPT and Perplexity enabling their assistants with shopping functionality. And I think it's Google AI mode, because I think that's really what's going to change potentially how people are purchasing products online.
Yeah. And also the monetization model behind it. I think we can already see some indications similar to Google and SEA that there will also be paid search results. But we have to call our friend Sam Altman to understand that better, probably. Yeah. But actually, Klarna was an interesting one, because I think in the beginning they also said, "Hey, we don't need any people anymore." And I think they also announced they laid off people only to rehire them. I think there were a few articles on the web I saw. Have you seen them?
No, I haven't seen that they've studied rehiring.
I haven't seen either, but there is also another company that is laying off a lot of people, and that is Fiverr, because right now you don't need so many people to do your voiceovers, to design logos for you, like that. So there's definitely going to be a wave of layoffs as a result of AI.
Yeah, so you can Google it. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I think retailers do need to be careful, because we see repeatedly in kind of consumer surveys that people still really like human interaction. And so I think that they should be looking at AI as a kind of additional power rather than replacing the humans in the loop. And I think that's particularly true of customer service interactions, especially when the technology is not yet 100%. I think that it's a bit of a risk to get rid of customer service teams and rely entirely on AI for that. I think it should be about using AI to increase discovery, increase productivity, increase efficiency, and then kind of redirecting people into where they can make a real difference, which is that kind of interaction with customers.
Yeah, and that was also bottom line what all those articles said. People sometimes want to speak to people, and I agree with you. And there are use cases like in retail, the top FAQs. You don't probably, for the standard cases, need a human being, because you can be faster with great bots. We have Pandora, for example, the jewelry company. They have a pretty good agent up and running, and they see great results. But if it gets to a point where you don't, maybe if you look at product counseling, so probably you want to speak to someone who really is trained and who is a human, but is augmented with the top browsed items that you have left in your clickstream, for example, and then put together a really compelling recommendation for you.
I think it also depends on the size of the brand, because a lot of the smaller brands could not afford to have human customer service before, maybe only for like with via email, and now they can do it with AI. And there are some tools that can help you create AI agents that are specifically for your brand, that learn your products, they learn your audience, and then it gives a really, really good experience that maybe even a human wouldn't be able to. And I'm seeing some great results with some of those more specialized tools. Obviously, if you use generic, chats, that's not going to work. But if you really train them on your specific products and audience, I see some really good feedback also from customers who enjoy speaking to those agents. But I agree that there always has to have a way for a customer to ask to speak to a human, and make sure the conversation is then transferred to a human. And I think this will make people feel comfortable, because they would know that at any point they're able to do that. But then, of course, the wait will be a little bit longer. So if your request is simple, you will probably prefer to speak with AI. And then if the AI wasn't able to solve your request, then you would be escalating it to a human representative.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's augmentation versus automation.
Exactly.
Automation where necessary and possible, but then if you get transferred to the human being, you have the tone and voice, but you have also lots of AI tools around you that the consumer doesn't see, but helps you get rid of the job faster. But now that we have Carina, I have a very important question, because I think you do a lot of research, primary, secondary, and I think in the end, to be successful and to see adoption, I think you have to address what the consumers want, being very customer centric. So my question would be, have you seen, or what are the top things consumers want to get out of this?
Well, so it's interesting. If you look at how consumers are using generative AI bots now, they're using, well, I haven't seen so many surveys in terms of using AI assistants on retailer websites, but I have seen quite a few in using things like ChatGPT and Google Gemini. And the way that they're using it now is at the discovery. So they're using it to research new products. So I think it's a great discovery tool. I think they love being able to do that instead of kind of trawling websites and trying to find pricing information and different options and reading a magazine on a blog on it and a customer review. Like, they really like having that information all in one. They can just have a conversation. I think that's really powerful. But they're at this stage a little bit reluctant to make a purchase on those platforms. So I think in order to see kind of really widespread adoption of people being confident to make purchases on those platforms, and also we're seeing a lot of kind of AI driven shopping apps pop up, which are leveraging this technology in a similar way to like ChatGPT. I think we're going to have to...
Do you have an example, maybe, Carina?
Yeah.
Just to give people a little bit some...
So there is Daydream is one, and Boy Scout is another. And essentially they are chatbots, but which will talk about shopping and help with kind of product discovery and things like that. But I think to see widespread adoption of people actually then going on to purchase via these platforms, we really need to see more confidence around data security, around privacy, around payments. I think that's still people's biggest concern with AI. If we then ask consumers, what would you like generative AI to solve? Actually, the problem often is not discovery. The problem is kind of post-purchase frustrations. So people would really like generative AI to make it easier to find out their delivery times, or, reorganize a delivery or change their address or things like that. I think that kind of post-purchase thing is what people really want help with.
And this is something that also agentic AI can help with, right? Because it can connect into the CRM systems and check on the delivery time for that specific customer.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's the real game changer, is that kind of post-purchase element. And like you said, for a lot of brands and retailers that just don't have kind of large customer service teams, there's then a frustrating wait, or there's perhaps a conversation with, a more traditional chatbot, which can be really frustrating. So I think, or even now, a kind of Gen AI chatbot that can give you the answer but can't really do anything about it. So I think that agentic AI, for it to be able to give you the answer and do it without you having to speak to anyone, is really powerful.
Yeah.
Cool. So
For example,
post-purchase it is.
yeah, I mean, I can think of a few examples. Like if I just purchase a product and then I want to send it to a different address, this is something that today with agentic AI, most likely we can have that done automatically, right? They can change the address in the backend, check if the deliveries already went out to the former address, and so on. So that's something that was
Exactly that.
definitely not possible before.
Yeah.
And that all sounds very simple, I would say. I mean, it gets quite complex because it typically involves multiple systems, especially post-purchase. If you want to redirect your order, you need DHL or UPS. You need order management information. You need a multitude of data points in order to do that. And then, to Carina's point earlier, it's not just about giving you a summary, where's the order, it's about changing it. So triggering an action and coming back with a result. I think that's the magic that the agents can do compared to the assistants. And then it gets interesting if you get those data points to drive meaningful behavior. But other than that, it will only be, or if not, then it will only be as good as a traditional chatbot, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think something to keep in mind when retailers are thinking about all of this is that actually, if you ask retailers what their biggest frustrations with e-commerce are, time and time again, it's delivery speed and delivery cost. That's the biggest problem with e-commerce. So while retailers really should be looking into AI and how can it improve their systems, from a consumer facing point of view, I think it's also really important to be looking at how the technology can improve on fulfillment, because I think for consumers, when it comes to buying online, that's the biggest barrier. If you can overcome that, that's what's going to convince people to buy more.
Completely agree. Carina, I have an important question. At the end of the day, what will determine the success of Gen AI implementation? And even more importantly, how do we measure that success?
Yeah, that's going to be challenging measuring the success. And I guess it talks about success from whose perspective, because the retailer's success from Gen AI might be quite different to a kind of widespread adoption of using ChatGPT to complete purchases, which is perhaps what the tech guys would like to see. So from a kind of, are we going to see AI and Gen AI and agentic AI emerge as a kind of major new retail channel, and we're going to see far more e-commerce orders happening via that channel? I think that is going to depend a bit on that kind of integration piece, because in order for consumers to use it, it has to be a really smooth experience across channels, across retailers. And that is going to require a little bit of industry collaboration. We're going to have standards around things like payments. So I think really, and actually, it's kind of comes down to the same always. Like whether or not it's going to be a success is going to end up with what is the consumer experience of that technology. So if it takes away a friction, then it will be a success. If it adds friction, then it's not going to be a success. So, and I think that's how retailers should be thinking about it in their own implementation as well. Is like, is this really answering a friction for the consumer? And is it removing that friction? Is it going to add any new friction? And that's really where, and when it comes to measuring it, they need to be measuring it across multiple metrics, rather than just focusing solely on things like conversion. Like they need to be keeping an eye also on attitudes toward their brands, whether customers are happy. Really keeping in mind that broader picture is going to be important at all times.
I wonder, I think, Yael, you said it, and I think, Carina, you said it earlier as well. Trust will be a key factor, because I think trusting ChatGPT to do, I would say, a summary of something, a text that you copy and paste, probably is easy. But when it comes to entering your credit card data to book your travel itinerary for 10K in the upcoming summer holiday, probably trust will be a very important element. So I wonder if you guys have any idea, Yael or Carina, how can people trust the AI in the future?
Well, that's really interesting, actually, because and I think that might define how successful different agents are at the early stages. So Amazon has launched Buy For Me, which is essentially where you can do agentic checkout from other brands' websites from within Amazon. And Amazon would have a huge advantage, being that people already trust their payment information with Amazon. So they're not having to give their payment information to a whole new platform. And Amazon, first and foremost, although it is a kind of tech giant, it's a retailer, and that's how people view it. So I think it might have a bit of an advantage in that. I think people might be slightly more nervous about giving their payment details to a ChatGPT, especially because there's been so much kind of talk about privacy and data and things like that. But I think really there's going to have to be some collaboration between the kind of tech giants and the financial players to build a really strong ecosystem, which is going to give people reassurance that their payment details are safe. And we are seeing that's already happening. Google's partnered with MasterCard and PayPal and quite a few different other AI organizations and payment organizations to kind of create a protocol for AI-driven payments. And it's urging a kind of industry-wide collaboration on that. And I think that's really what's going to need to happen for this to be a success.
Cool. We're getting to the end of our great podcast, so I learned a lot of new things. I think Daydream was one of my favorite ones I didn't know. Before we get to our last question, we have always the same question in the end, but before we go there, I'm also reading your predictions. I think you're looking into the future quite a lot, or trying to look into the future and doing predictions, and you revisit your predictions. What is your prediction for Gen AI in retail for the next, it's hard to say a horizon. A year is probably too much because everything is so fast. Let's say, what is your prediction for the next 2 to 3 months?
2 to 3 months. Okay, right, let me have a think about that. So I think in the short term, we're going to see AI having an impact on kind of micro metrics, perhaps things like average order value and conversion rates. I think the kind of long-term major channel shift is going to be a bit more dependent on overcoming those things that we've talked about in terms of trust and cross-industry collaboration and things like that. So I personally don't think necessarily that this kind of agentic AI, this generative AI, is going to immediately mean that everyone's going to shop more online. I think people that enjoy shopping in store too, for a multitude of different reasons that AI can't take away. But I think we are going to start to see some micrometrics, some things like conversion and average order value. But I think also we're going to see a big disruption to search and traffic to retail and brand websites. And I really think that's the kind of biggest consideration for them at the moment, is working out strategies for that big shift.
Yeah,
Okay.
something I'm hearing constantly from e-commerce managers across the board as well. It's definitely.
And I think, Carina, you said it in the beginning, there are already signs, but the numbers are quite low. Do you have a kind of a ballpark number? What is the average traffic that big retailers see coming from the likes of ChatGPT?
So there was a study by Adobe recently in the US, which found that traffic from generative AI sources, so that's things like ChatGPT, was up 4,700% year on year in July.
Oh,
so that's a massive surge. Yeah. So that's a huge surge.
4,700%.
Obviously, it's coming from a very low base.
Yeah,
it's coming
exactly.
from a very low base. But I think we're also seeing these other studies. I saw one by Bain & Company that said, which is amazing if it's true, is 60% of clicks are now, or 60% of searches are now ending in 0 clicks.
Okay, because Google is summarizing already the stuff.
Because Google overviews, And if you then think of, if we do end up with this kind of agentic checkout and that gains traction, that's going to be even more of an impact. Because at the moment, if people are having a shopping conversation with ChatGPT, they're generally still going to the retailer website to complete the purchase. But if that becomes agentic and they don't need to visit the retailer website, that's obviously a huge, huge change to the path to purchase.
Yeah,
interesting.
That also affects the discovery, because right now retailers are counting on the fact that even if you come for a specific item, once you get to the product page, you see similar items. You see items that can complete the purchase,
Exactly.
things like that. And throughout the entire journey, they're trying to get you to discover more and more relevant items, which also might be good for the consumer as well, because it saves them time. They can buy multiple items in one visit. But at the end of the day, sometimes we just want to get this one item and that's it. And I think for those kind of simple purchases, in the future, we'll see more and more of them ending without even visiting the retailer's website. So
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, in that I don't think that everyone is going to be using an AI agent to do all of their shopping, because I think people enjoy shopping. They enjoy the discovery element. They enjoy going into the store or going onto the website or social media, which drives a lot of discovery. I don't think that everyone just wants an AI agent to automate that process for them. But I think in some categories, for some purchases, it's going to be an attractive proposition. So I think it's really going to be disruption is what retailers and brands should be preparing themselves for, which is, there's going to be opportunities and there's going to be risks, I think, ahead for them coming from this surge.
So with that, I think we are down to the last question of our conversation today, which is, if you were a retail or brand CEO today, what would be the first thing that you would do? Or if you would have to give an advice to one of the biggest retailers or brand CEOs, what would you tell them to do first thing in the morning?
I mean, my advice would always be the same, which is that be aware of the disruption that's coming, be aware of the opportunities that AI might afford, but also concentrate on the consumer. So start with your consumers. What is going to fix friction for your consumers? And it might be that AI can solve that friction, in which case, great, go ahead and invest in that AI, be that consumer facing or kind of back end. But in thinking about AI and in thinking about the kind of shiny new stuff and the hype, like, don't forget the fundamentals. That's still really important for consumers, and try and fix the issues that we already know that they have, things like delivery times, delivery speeds. Don't obsess about AI and forget to fix the problems that we know exist, because I think essentially we're going to be fixing problems that don't exist and failing to fix problems that do exist, and that's just going to end up with unhappy consumers.
Interesting. And I think if I just recap a few of those answers of the last, what would you recommend to a CEO? I think they're all going in a very similar direction. It's the basics. Listen to your people, go to your stores, listen to shop reps, what people want. So it's all about focusing on what's really important. And if you're a retailer, that's the customer or the consumer. So I think there's a pattern, and it's still, maybe there are still a lot of companies out there that don't do that, focus too much on their products and not so much customers. But thank you, Carina. That was insightful.
Thanks for having me.
From my end.
Thank you, Carina, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we too. And we are really looking forward to your new reports coming out. So what is that? Maybe just a little bit of eMarketer preview. What's coming?
Yeah, sure. So we have one coming out very shortly, which is specifically looking at agentic AI and AI assistants and whether they are going to accelerate the shift to e-commerce. So whether they're going to accelerate a major channel shift in the near term and then in the long term.
Cool. So I'm logging into my eMarketer account and check every day.
Yeah, it'll be published in the next few days.
Cool. Thank you, Carina. Have a great day, and hopefully see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks both.
Thank you all.